about a famous rabbi that was, I think, from Kurdistan origin, a rabbi we've spoken about before, I think on the previous occasion before, Rabbi Yitzhak Amadi. Very, very great rabbi. He was born in the year 1926 and he passed away on the 1st of January in 2017. I believe the 3rd of Tebet, which is going to be next week, coming after Hanukkah, will mark his Hilula. He was an educator. He was a rabbi of the Moshav in Emek. Respectively, this Moshav, I believe, more in the northern part of Israel, or northern, I think quite close to Eilat, if I'm not mistaken. I have to double check it, or Lake Nam, Elite. And he was also foundation. He would found various different importances for the Kehillah of the Kurdistani community. He would also win the Yakir Yerushalayim Prize in the year 2000. Let's explore a few of the highlights of the famous scholar's life. So he was born, his father's name was Shabtai and his mother's name was Rachel. He was born in an area called El Amday, I believe, in Kurdistan, hence his name. That was a part of Iraq, and that was in the border of Turkey, reported over. So I think it was when he was about approximately 8 years of age. They would actually, I think, at that point in time, contemplate on moving to the land of Israel. His family would, and they would, I think, immigrate, if I'm not mistaken. And that was a period of time, I think, 1926, where there was many people migrating to Israel at that point in time. It was that window of time. It was, I think they would go through Mosul, if I'm not mistaken. I'll say what it says in Hebrew, but Yod Bigil Shmone Heklitan Horab La'alot L'Yisrael Mamtinu Perek Zman Shel Shnatayim Be'ir Musa Kedei Lekabel Ishur Aliyah. So I think they would have to wait in this area of Mosul, if I'm not mistaken, which is very interesting enough, for a couple of years in order to make Aliyah in of itself. That would be Ubabat Hitztaim Bebeita Sefer Hamakumi Habu Mosul over there. So very interesting. So just to progress on, so anyone tuning in live, we're exploring the life of Rabbi Yitzhak Amadi, as it's going to be his Hilula. So I think he would excel at a local school over there, and eventually they will emigrate, I think, to the old city part of Jerusalem, which was a brilliant move at that point in time and very exciting. And I think he would be educated inside the Talmud Torah of the Sephardi community over there. And I think he would learn for a period of time, maybe for 2 years, in this Talmud Torah. And lachar meken avra mishpachto lidgore b'shkunat ha-Kurdim. They would go to the Kurdistani neighborhood in Jerusalem called Zichron Yosef. Hopefully, I think there's a place we actually walked past, if I'm not mistaken. It was actually established in the year 1927 through the people that made Aliyah to Kurdistan at that window of time. And I think, very interesting. This was in Jerusalem. Naturally, I think it's more of the center part, if I'm not mistaken, Merkaz Ha'ir, but Pati Shchonat Nachlaot. So it's quite in the Nachlaot neighborhood, a place we visited on this channel before, quite next to the famous Machane Yehuda market, which obviously we've visited on this channel extensively on several occasions before, which I would very much recommend everyone to look into, friends, over here. So that's very interesting. That's where he would actually come. That's where this was actually established. And afterwards he would learn in the famous Yeshivat Porat Yosef, the bastion, let's just say, of the Sephardic Yeshivot in Israel, in Jerusalem. Naturally, I think after 4 years he would move to Merkaz Harav. He would make another move over there at that stage in time. So he would make various different, let's just say, important moves, and so on and so forth. And he would learn under Rabbi Yaakov Moshe, if I'm not mistaken, Haralap. Really, he was a posek and a Kabbalist, and he was a Rosh Yeshiva, I believe, of Merkaz Harav at that stage in time. I'm just going to return in 1 second, so please just watch your space, and we'll be back in 1 minute, friends. Hi, shalom everyone. Thanks for being patient and waiting. We're exploring life within regards to Rabbi Yitzhak Amadi, famous rabbi of his time, who it marks his Hilula here on the 3rd of Tebet. So he would actually learn in both Porat Yosef Yeshiva and Dati Leumi Yeshiva Merkaz Harav. And then Husmach L'Shochet or Bodek, he'll become ordained as a rabbi that can perform kosher slaughter, and a Bodek, also an investigator. Through Rabbi Mordechai Miyuchas. Interesting enough, I think we've spoken about Rabbi Mordechai Miyuchas on various occasions. Remember, the Miyuchas family was, I think, a famous family in Jerusalem, respectively, family we've spoken about before. There was actually several Rabbi Mordechai Miyuchases that we have to note in of itself, but he would be ordained, I think, by this specific one of that era of time, okay, which is very interesting. There was actually, just to say as a side note, there was a Rabbi Mordechai Miyuchas, if I'm not mistaken, that lived between 1738 to 1805, who was, I think, the 14th Rishon LeZion in Israel, and of Jerusalem chief rabbi between Rabbi Yom Tov Al-Gazi and Rabbi Mordechai Levi, and he was also Rosh Yeshiva of Knesset Israel, or the sixth one, for 45 years. Interesting. No, but that's just a side point, not necessarily connected to this specific video. So he was, I think, at that point in time, Rabbi Mordechai Miyuchas was, let's say, the head kosher slaughterer in Jerusalem. So that was a very, at that point in time, a very prominent position, and very, very interesting. So he would also get a rabbinic ordination from the famous Rabbi Meir Hai Uziel, another rabbi we've spoken about extensively on this series before on various occasions. That's something that we have to point out. Remember, Rabbi Meir Hai Ben Zion Meir Hai Uziel was a chief rabbi between 1948 to 1953 of Israel, and I think he was a chief rabbi also of Tel Aviv at one stage in time. Was famous Posek. He was one of the great rabbis of Israel of that specific area. Rabbi we've spoken about extensively before on various occasions before. And I think it was what the year, if I'm not mistaken, 1947. More will actually occur at that stage in time in his life. He would we're going to see that he really does achieve a lot and does huge amounts of stuff. Anyone tuning in live at the moment, we're exploring the history of a famous rabbi that was of Kurdistani origin, and a rabbi I think we've spoken about before on other videos also. And it will be his hillel here on the 3rd of Tevet, just after the Jewish festival of Hanukkah, just after Zot Hanukkah, Rabbi Yitzhak Amadi. And so it was in 1947, I believe. He would start working as a rabbi and a shochet in Moshav of Ein-Emek. This was, so remember, at that stage in time, he's only about 21 years of age. But so very interesting enough. So I think it was that point in time, let's just say within the he would have ordination in of itself. He would provide religious services, I think. I think it was at the time we were in Yochanan Emek. It was maybe a different designated area, but I'll have to double check on that. So so very interesting. It was a time period when he came, where he into this position. There was a huge wave of Aliyah. Many people come from Kurdistan to Israel. Nishlach el Ma'aravat HaKastel. They would actually go through the castle itself. Remember, we actually visited the castle, if I'm not mistaken, on this channel over here of Har Ma'oz. Let's just say, I think it's in Mevaseret Zion. We actually visited on this channel. We did a tour of there. Shem Hitrakez Rubam Shel Ha'olim. So many people come there. Va'irgun et Tachum HaChinuch Ba'amavara. Gam Kashe Hapcha Hamavara Liyot HaYeshav Ma'oz Zion. So what is Ma'oz Zion, friends? Ma'oz Zion, if I'm not mistaken, is a Mu'atzot Makomot in the corridor area of Jerusalem to Reches area in the, let's say, the mountains of Jerusalem. I think possibly in the Mevaseret Zion territories, areas, if I'm not mistaken. Haya oseh et darkom Yerushalayim yom lema'oz Zion kedei letapeach et hachinuch shel ha'yeladim b'makom. So he was really into education at some point in time. And very interesting. Anyone tuning in live, we're exploring the history with regards to a great Rabbi Yitzhak Amadi over there. So please subscribe to the channel if you're new over here. Now, he would really try to preserve, let's say, the heritage of the Kurdistani community. That was one of the main focuses over there. And he would really use his might to do this. That was his one of the main goals. And I think it was in 1973 he would form together with Rabbi Yitzhak Barashi the Merkaz Ruchani Liehudi Kurdistan, a main Torah learning center for the Kurdistan community. Let's speak about Rabbi Yitzhak Barashi also for a minute. I think it was his Hilula actually quite recently. I think it's a rabbi we've spoken about. I think last year we recorded a video about him. He was a rabbi of the Machne Yaakov neighborhood in Netanya. He was a founder of the Kafar Uriah, which I'm not mistaken, that was the name of the, let's say, center touring place for the Jewish community of Kurdistan in of itself. And Menaseach Atfilah Mish Berech Lachalei Tza'al. So very interesting. He was actually maybe the author, or he would actually write that in of itself. So Tefillah that many of us all over the world will say for our heroic soldiers. He was actually also from Kurdistan, Rabbi Yitzhak Amadi. I think he was born in the year 1923. He actually would move to Jerusalem when he was young, I think 6 years of age, if I'm not mistaken. He was actually learning various different. He was also part of the Yeshivat Porat Yosef, and also in America's Rav, just like Rabbi Amadi was very, very similar within regards to that. He was also ordained to the rabbinate and very close to Rabbi Ben Zion Chai Uziel. Very interesting. So there was a lot of similarities between those two great rabbis, and he was also a shochet, and I think he was part of the army, if I'm not mistaken, when there was an independence war, and he would take on various different appointments over his life. Rabbi Barashi is. Remember, Barashi is also another famous family, I think, from Kurdistan area, if I'm not mistaken. He would be part of that. He would be part in the Harel Brigade, if I'm not mistaken, and I think he would live in the Zichron Yosef neighborhood, and he was a champion within regards of national Bible quizzes, if I'm not mistaken. But he was very close to Rabbi Yitzhak Amadi, and they would form this group together. I think he was also quite close to Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu, who would actually learn with him. And he was a very important figure, let's just say. It would be actually his grandson, Rabbi Shmuel Barashi, I think, will publish a book, Be'er Yitzhak, if I'm not mistaken, later on. And I think when he passed away, he was living in the Nachlaot neighborhood area also. So very, very similar, let's just say, to some degrees, stories between Rabbi Yitzhak Barashi and Rabbi Yitzhak Amadi. Very interesting. They've got the same first name also, so that's something else we can point out. Okay, so let's go back to Rabbi Yitzhak Amadi. I think it was in 1976. He'll be, I think, retire at that point in time. He would serve as a principal of the school called Ariel, which was another prominent position over there. He was a manager over there. And I think in 1979, Kibel Ot Ezrach Kavod, he would actually receive this. I think it was maybe when Yitzhak Barashi retired in 1976. I'll have to double check that. And just to point back, he would serve as a principal there. He was honored as an honorary citizen award from the Mevaseret Zion local council for his work in the field of education, which was very, very prominent. I think come on 1992, he would plan to redesign the Yehezkel Hanavi synagogue in Zichron Yosef neighborhood in Jerusalem. I think this very, very interesting enough. So this was I think this synagogue that we did visit, and we maybe actually recorded around there also. So I think it was a Beit Knesset, Yehezkel Hanavi. It's part of the Zichron Yosef neighborhood. I think possibly in around the Nachlaot area, but I have to double check that. Yachad im Ha'amnit, someone named Zahava Benyamin, if I'm not mistaken. Someone that would have a prominent position, I think maybe in the municipality of Jerusalem, but I have to double check that. He would actually establish a kollel over there for the Kurdistani community. He would 1995. So I think there'll be he would I think maybe they will give smicha over there in 1995 to some of the students. I have to double check on that also. So he had, just to recap, I think he was a father of 7 children, 2 boys. I think one of them is Uri Amadi, who is not mistaken, he also lives in Jerusalem. He's got various prominent positions, I think, in the Makor Baruch neighborhood, and is a manager also of the Kehila Lev Ha'ir, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that's very interesting. And Yigal Amadi. So who is he? I think he's a man of the congregation, let's just say, of Israel. Also, I think he's got doctorate, if I'm not mistaken. And he was part of the Moatzot Yisraelit Tarbut, and was also a Sagan, a deputy in the place of the Rosh Ha'ir of Jerusalem between 1993 to 2008. So you could see the family itself would take on various prominent positions. I think he would author a book called the Chachmei Kurdistan, if I'm not mistaken, which is a book within regards to, let's say, some of the chronicles on the rabbis of Kurdistan, respectively. So, he was about 91 years of age when he passed away. We can say a bit more within regards to him here in the special edition. The Homey website, once again, gives a very detailed article in of itself, that just stressing over how he would really be imbued with in regards to Torah and Yirat Shamayim, and how the family would actually go to Mosul for a couple of years on the way to Eretz Israel, to the land of Israel, and eventually make Aliyah to the land of Israel in 1936. And living in the old city in itself, learning in Talmud Torah of the Sephardic community. I think it was called Talmud Torah Shel Eidat Sephardim. Very interesting stuff. And how in 1938, I think they would actually move to the Zichron Yosef neighborhood, to the synagogue they would establish, or would be established quite nearby there, Yechezkel and Avi, and really take on various different importances in of itself. So that's something I have to point out. How he would start learning in Yeshivat Porat Yosef. I think he was only 13 years of age in 1939 when he started learning there, which is actually very, very interesting. I think his Rosh Yeshiva at the time was Rav Ezra Atiyah, the famous Rosh Yeshiva there. And then it was in 1943 he would move to Merkaz Arav under Rabbi Yaakov Moshe Harpa. Interesting. And so you could see he really achieved a lot, and very, very quickly also. It was many different positions at such a young age. It's absolutely incredible. You could say this specifically, and absolutely astounding. I think in 1992, I think he would establish the Beit Moreshet Yehudi Amdi Beit Midrash Limdei Rabbanut training program. And I think Al Pu'ulo Zacha b'Shnat 2000, year 2000, Le'ot Yakir HaYerushalayim. With all these important things he did, he was actually recognized as Yakir Yerushalayim. And it was in the year 2005 when his book called the Chachmei Kurdistan came out at that point in time. And he passed away on the 3rd of Tevet in the year 2017. And many of Hidushei Torah shekatav al Yusot Aniyar v'drashot shechiber omdim b'ktav yad b'dei nechedo. I think someone named Dror Amadi would actually publish some of his writings also, which is another very important thing that we have to point out over here, friends. So Dror Amadi would be interesting to hear more within regards to him also. And I think he's also an important figure, let's just say, in Jerusalem. I can see that he does some podcasts and so on and so forth. So he was a great rabbi in Kurdistan. Remember, we did record a video on the history of the Kurdistani Jewish community at one stage in time. So I recommend everyone to look into that and just educate themselves within regards to that also. So very, very interesting. Anyone tuning in live, welcome to our community. We're exploring a few of the highlights of famous rabbi's life. Rabbi Yitzhak Amadi, who was a great rabbi in Kurdistan in his time. Rabbi, I think we've spoken about on various occasions before over here. So once again, we happen to be speaking about him today. So that's very, very interesting. So if you like the content that we're doing, friends, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel over here and help us in our community. We grow. We like to learn more about Israel and the great Oriental rabbis of yesteryear, and really recorded about 1,400 biography videos over here of great chachamim of yesteryear that would really, really shape up, let's just say, world Jewry to some great aspect. Okay, so let's explore a few of the highlights of his book. He left a Torah colossal book, as I said before. I think it was it was published in the year 2000, if I'm not mistaken. Some of his teachings was he wrote the book on the so he would get. Actually, we're going to explore a few of the writings he actually would write in of itself on different occasions of time. He would teach once melamed shebekol makomot bahem sheho bnei Yisrael gadlu adirei Torah. The importance of wherever they come about, the strength of the Torah of Am Yisrael will really very much come about. Just let's just say just an idea within regards to that, how important it is, like the Torah to Eretz Israel, and learning Torah itself really does imbue and bring strength and bring wisdom in of itself. So this is one of the teachings he will give over from the book. Let's explore a few more. It's very, very interesting. Another teaching, I think, which would come out, I think, in manuscript form, if I'm not mistaken. So we don't know where I think Moses is actually buried. So he's just stressing this teaching. I don't think we are. Don't know if there's medrashim or anything that talks about it. Another writing in Lamed, Shechirut al Cheshbon Yinetkot min Hashorashim Eina Chirut. That's another teaching. Says Melamed shezachu lagashim areshit me'inyahem haya b'niyat beit knesset. So this was another teaching of his, once again about the importance of building synagogues and stuff like that. He really did very much in his life. Another one of his writings, Teshuvah b'chayav v'shem Avram nikar al kol zera'o. So the importance of doing teshuvah inside life, and that's an Abrahamic importance. So one last teaching he would say over Melamed shekiseh ha'amidim b'pinat asuka nikra kiseh ha'avot. This was actually, I think, another one of his teachings. If I'm not mistaken, maybe it was a teaching he wrote in the year 1967, or was printed at one point in time. So remember, he was author of various different great books. He's a famous rabbi of his time. That's one thing we have to point out for sure. Another famous rabbi. And we've spoken about many famous rabbis. We've spoken probably about a dozen rabbis that actually came from Kurdistan at one stage in time. So that's something very, very important to point out. Many people speak about him. I think he had connections with Iryat Yerushalayim. Obviously, his son would have a prominent position over there. And yeah, it was... well, if you look back, we did a tour, I believe, of Nachlaot neighborhood, of that specific area in of itself. And in that specific tour, we did explore, let's just say, within regards to the Kurdistani areas in itself. I recommend everyone to look more about Yigal Amadi, who's his son. He's about 70 years of age now, and really took on various different positions in Jerusalem. Just to point out, he was, I think Rabbi Yitzhak Amadi's wife was Rabbinit Shoshana, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so remember, just to recap, Rabbi Yitzhak Amadi was Yakir Yerushalayim and Yakir Mevaseret Zion. So he would have various different importances, and was really an outstanding person, man of his time, and really, really achieved a lot in his 91 years of life. Now, it's actually interesting. He would send his son, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, to, I think, I'll just have to look into it. I think he would send his son Yigal Amadi to various different schools. I think he was part of Tichun Himabert, if I'm not mistaken. He would actually learn there. I think Tochniot Tiferet Yerushalayim. I think he would work with Tnuat Hanoar also. Maybe he was part of Beitar. His son was, and I think his son Yigal Amadi would be in the army. I think in 1973, so he was only 18 years of age. And it took on various different importances, let's just say, in of itself, and was quite well known at that stage in time. Very, very well known. Had various different important positions. Remember, he was the deputy head of the city of Jerusalem, a very prominent position. This was during his time period. So he was part of various different Moatzots and various different. Important figures in of itself, and hopefully maybe we'll speak about him at another stage of time. So family that will accomplish a lot. Please, friends, subscribe to the channel if you're new here. We're a community here, and we're learning about great rabbis of yesteryear. I'm just going to take a 1 minute short break over here, so please, in the meantime, subscribe, and I will we'll come back in just 1 minute just to end the video, just to say something else about the Kurdistani Jewish community. Okay, friends, everyone that's tuned in. Yeah, we explored the life within regards to a great Kurdistani rabbi. Remember, on this series already, we've spoken about many great rabbis from Kurdistan, and we did record a video at one stage within regards to the history of Kurdistani Jewry, which I would very much recommend everyone to look back on. I think we recorded about 3 months ago. I think it happened to be probably just before Rosh Hashanah, where we really started this series, let's just say, of great rabbis. Remember, from Kurdistan itself, especially, there were very great families, especially the Barashi family that we spoke about. The Barzani family also is a very famous family, which had many famous rabbis in Kurdistan of its days. That's something that we've spoken about on various occasions before. And the Barashi family, for example, Rabbi Zachariah Barashi, I think he passed away, I think, at the age of 117. I think we did record a video within regards to him also a couple of years ago. There was Rabbi Shmuel Barzani, one of the famous rabbis. He had a famous daughter, I think, Aznat Barzani, for example. So it was very much a famous rabbinic place at that stage in time, and there was many great rabbis of yesteryear in Kurdistan, which I would recommend everyone to look into. And it was one of the first videos as we recorded also before that, something to point out before. The Kurdistani Jewish community in of itself have a very well decorated history. That's something I will definitely point out. And it's interesting, there was other, Rabbi Moshe Gabbai, I think, also were in Jerusalem at that point in time. He was a head rabbi of the Kurdistani community. And I think he had great ties. Also, he was quite close to the president of Israel, if I'm not mistaken, when they first moved to Israel. And there was various other rabbis also we have to point out in Kurdistan all throughout. But I would definitely recommend everyone to look at the videos that we recorded about all those rabbis, the Barzani family, the Barashi family, and so on and so forth. So just to recap over here, most of Kurdish Jews were forced out of Iraqi Kurdistan. They would eventually evacuate to Israel in the early 1950s, most of the people. Obviously, we spoke about Rabbi Amadi, who would actually come in way early in the 1930s. And in the 1950s, it was a huge aliyah where the Kurdistani community would come mostly with the Iraqi Jewish community. And unfortunately, I think some of the people did lose their lives at a point in time. And it's reported over now currently there's as many as 200,000 Kurdistani Jews or Kurdish Jews in Israel, and half of them live in Jerusalem. And there's over 30 agricultural villages throughout the country that were founded by Kurdish Jews. So you can say they really achieved a lot. So it just shows, also pays testament, let's just say, to the great work that Rabbi Yitzhak Amadi did, when he actually came at that stage in time. And other famous characters, the Barzani family is definitely one of the most famous families of Kurdistani Jewry in of itself. So thanks to everyone for taking the time for watching. Wish you all a Chanukah Sameach, and take care and watch over the previous videos. Thank you.